Just checking YouTube. Right, let's hope this is going. This is okay. This looks on. I'm just going to refresh YouTube accordingly. Yes, here we are. Excellent. We are live on YouTube. Hello to anyone watching. Bear with me for a second while I just get up things like a live chat, etc., etc. Because we are on live, what's it called? StreamYard. And we just want to make sure no comments, chats, etc. are missed. So I just want to bring that up on my phone somewhere. You know what? We'll figure it out as we go along, because I can't see anything at the moment, but as when people join, we should do that. So hello, welcome to episode 2 of Emotional Intelligence and Quantum Physics. I am Inner Peace Walker, otherwise known as Vishad, on with my distinguished guest Nini. Nini, if you just want to say hello and introduce yourself to people who may not have seen you before.
Cool. Yeah. So my name is Nini, as Vishad just said, and I'm very passionate about everything coalescing back into like the one source type of a thing. So I feel like we talk a lot about emotional intelligence or spirituality, and then people talk about science, and is science really just a bunch of reductionism? Is spirituality woo-woo? Like, how does this all work together in one, especially since they seem so different? So it's been very exciting. I met Vishad about a year and a half ago, and we've had some very nice interactions. We got together saying, hey, let's just talk about this. Let's just share what we are thinking about, hoping that other people will resonate with that. So it's exciting.
Absolutely, and we can't add much more to that. For those that have seen Nini's content on social media, you'll know that she's very articulate and very full of ideas in terms of where we view things, how we view things, and puts it in a manner that's, on the face of it, very complex, very deep topics and thoughts, but distilled down to very manageable and digestible way. And we thought, look, maybe video is the best way to expand this to more people, right? That beyond thinking of concepts of, we're mixing the fields of quantum physics and emotional intelligence. I guess the latter of emotional intelligence, we kind of have a rough idea about. We've heard it used, in more broader terms amongst our audience. But quantum physics, that might think, well, hang on, how does that even impact, emotional intelligence, for example? How do the two link? So we wanted to bring this series to you. And today's session is all about the power of mistakes. And, when Nini and I were kind of discussing the topic to talk about, power of mistakes came up on the back of, well, first of all, how we kind of, first of all, perceive things at the moment. We'll go on to talk about like self-hate cycles and perpetuating cycles in the episode. But Nini, if you want to start with the analogy about, you got 3 glasses of water. Now, people might think, you're going to talk about the half full, half empty analogy a little bit, but it goes a little bit beyond that. And it's more about how it's an example of how we look at things. So, Nini, do you want to take it away?
Yeah. So again, most people know when you look at the water, it's 3 people are staring at the same glass. Oh, see, you've got a visual aid right there. I brought mine.
Oh yeah, that wasn't even a coincidence.
Yeah, that's coexistence. So we both have our water here. So we're 2 different people from 2 different places in the world. But anyway, so you've got a glass of water, and 3 people are looking at this glass, and one person takes a look and says, it's not even filled all the way, and I hate water. Water's disgusting. The second person's like, wow, someone left me a glass of water. I'm blessed. This is amazing. And then the third person observes, it's the same glass. 2 people are seeing it totally different. I'm very curious as to how the perspective perhaps changes the energy of what's going on. And if anyone is familiar with the work of Dr. Emoto, he is a believe a Japanese doctor that talks about the intelligence of water, that when you say something to water, like you can say, I love you, the water molecules crystallize differently than when you say I hate you. And this was seen with experiments when people made rice. The I hate you rice turned moldy and putrid, and the I love you rice was very fresh and delicious, and the water also behaved differently. This is seen also in music. The energy of the music when put next to the water had an impact. So basically, yeah, what you are projecting will impact what you are seeing. And that will, when we get into the quantum physics, you have the wave function, you have infinite possibilities there. What you see creates a bias, and that's what you will collapse as your material, realistic entity that you see in the physical world. So that was the glass of water thing.
That's brilliant. I mean, to tie back to a point from our first session about the collapsing of probabilities when we encounter any events. So typically, everyday example might be you go to an ice cream shop and you've got an array of flavors to choose from. You're aware that the shop has a reputation of being quite good. People enjoy the produce and products from there, but you go in and go, okay, I'm not really sure which one to pick. There's so many choices. You go for, whatever your flavor of choice might be, say strawberry, and you have an experience from it. You either enjoy the ice cream or you don't, but that drives your choice for next time. Now, before we get to next time, what happened in that instance where you chose strawberry was that you had all the possibilities, so the infinite probabilities, collapsing down to one singular point because you made that choice. Now, you could use that same distribution down to singular point the next time, i.e. you go to the shop and go, I remember strawberry was good for me, I'm going to go for that again. So that's you still having your distribution at a singular point. Whereas if you essentially reopen your distribution of probabilities, you're basically going, right, this time I'll try a different flavor, chocolate or vanilla, or I don't know, whatever flavors are about nowadays. And to bring it back to the point of now is of today's topic was we're going to drill into that further of like, okay, what made us make those choices in the first place, about conscious observation, and how it leads into the power of mistakes was, something that we talked about, where the choices we make perpetuate the feelings we have from it, that it's a judgment of our abilities. And as I say, we'll come on to that further. But we then talked about how, funnily enough, that conscious observation related, or interlinked, I should say, with Einstein's theory of relativity. And if you want to talk about that.
So that's a big one. That's a huge controversy in physics. Quantum mechanics and, Einstein's theory of relativity, they don't mix. They seem to disprove, like, if one is true, the other is false. And, if you look at it simply from horizontal causality, left brain sequential thinking, that would be true, because that's all or nothing thinking, black and white thinking, mutually exclusive type of thinking. It's very mechanical, and it's if then thinking. It's not an inclusive, holistic type of a thinking, and that is how most of people think nowadays. But if you look at it vertical causality, there is a bigger picture that is not seen in a sequence, but it's like the difference between, listening to a song. You have to hear the song in sequence, hear it from start to finish. But when you stop that song and you're either holding the MP3 file or the YouTube music link, whatever it is, or the CD or the record back in my day, then, yeah, my dad had an LP player, so I still would use that. You're holding that whole song as a holistic piece. If you want to hear it, you got to play it out sequentially. Anyways, I digress. But the link that between general relativity and special relativity and quantum mechanics is based on the conscious observer, because based on the theory of relativity, the measurement of light and of time is going to change. There's no one magical place of rest that the speed of light is determined from. It's based on how fast or how slow a respective observer is traveling. And there's no, like I said, there's no absolute rest point. There's no special motion point. So everyone is moving at a slightly different speed to everybody else. So everyone's measurement of time is going to be slightly different. And with quantum mechanics, also, you're based on the conscious observer, that everyone, based on his or her perspective, is going to collapse something very special based on what he or she is seeing. And none of these things are virtually right or virtually wrong. They're just different. It's like taking a tuning fork and you strike the tuning fork and you have two notes. Let's say the C chord and the E chord. I'm sorry, the C note and the E note. That creates the CE, which is the C major chord. It's a beautiful harmony. But let's say you do the C chord, the C note, and the C sharp note. You now have a dissonance because those half-step frequencies produce a dissonant sound that doesn't sound good at all. They're not bad. They're not wrong. Just two sounds happen to work. Two sounds don't work. So with based on your perspective, it's the same thing. So certain perspectives jive relative to each other, certain don't. It doesn't make them correct or incorrect. And how that leads into mistakes is that we are taught, we are demonstrated that there is only one right answer. There's only one special place of rest, that everything moves relative to this one special quantum collapse that we're supposed to aspire to be, and the rest are null and void. And that's a problem because, you know, the probability wave is infinite for a reason. There are infinite possibilities, and, you know, relative to where people are judging the speed of life, you know, everyone's at a different speed relative to himself or herself, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, I bet viewers may not have thought, hang on, I'm going to get the theory of relativity, tuning of music, and the possibilities of life via an ice cream shop in one go. But hey, look, this is the way our conversations work. That, to be honest, these examples are everywhere around us, right? I mean, those two examples there to me were like, well, okay, you could apply it to one of the most famous scientific, you know, spaces and theorems. The idea that, look, whatever point on the, you know, spectrum or time that you look at is a different observation rather than just taking that one point. But also that when you apply it to your choices today, that making a certain choice based on what you knew at the time, so from the distribution of probabilities that you had, that making a certain choice was a mistake. Now, I'm not sure about you, but I'm seeing that more prevalent nowadays where, certainly in the space that I'm in of coaching, there's a lot of people that are, in essence, instead of inferring a possibility of a probability of choices, it's like, I'm just offering you one single point, i.e., what I say goes. And what I say goes, and everybody else's distribution that they're offering, whether that's a singular point or a whole distribution, is wrong. Now, that then leads us to, as you said, black and white thinking, which influences us to make everything that we have as a choice as binary, either this or either that. There's no in between. So we feel that if we make the wrong choice, whether that's through our own perception or a wider perception, it's a mistake. When perhaps the healthier alternative is to reconsider our possibilities as a distribution. So back to our ice cream shop where you got a whole menu to pick from, and that, you know, relating to your musical note tuning, the choices are different. They're not necessarily right or wrong. Only we can define that. So as you said, someone might play a C note and a C sharp in quick succession and go, that's not good to my ears. But someone else might go, I can make a tune out of that, for example. So it just goes to show that instead of black and white, for example, you can have what I call scaled thinking. So you introduce yourself to the idea that, you know what, there's very little in our life that you can say is 100% non-questionable fact. So even things like, 2 + 2 is 4. Now, pretty much everybody we speak to will go, that's fact. But there are some people out there, which we probably won't explore the rabbit hole today, that say even that's up for discussion or debate because of their knowledge about number systems or the way, numeracy is seen, etc., etc. So if there's space to consider, hang on, that might not be 100% true, we don't have to hold ourselves to black and white thinking and right, that is right, and I have to defend to the hilt with that. So we've opened ourselves up to a probability of a distribution of possibilities or probabilities, bringing in theories of relativity and the idea of being a conscious observer. Now, I wonder what your thoughts are about the idea of being a conscious observer and, what you think about that.
So I think it's powerful, and there's a lot of discussion. What is consciousness? Is it, so
Mm.
just in this discussion, when I refer to consciousness, I'm not referring to sleep versus wake. Like that's one type. I'm referring to the ability to be sapient, to be aware,
Yep.
to that we are basically channels of a higher source, which has emerged into a many. There's a one fundamental which has emerged into a many, which we see as separatism. And the many, how does it coalesce to go back to that one? And it's a little bit a lot of people understand that, yeah, we got to bring things back to the one. Like we have to be united, we have to be a
Mm.
one people. That's something that's felt, I think, universally in many ways. But where it gets a little bit messed up, I'm going to change the word messed up, where we have an error in thinking, is where we don't understand that there is a oneness that's fundamental to us,
Yeah.
that we reconverge. So basically, again, I'm reading this book about right brain and left brain, just understanding that the right brain sees the entirety. It gets like the aha moment, the gestalt. It gets this boom of inspiration, like a download, and then with the left, and then it passes it along to the left brain, which then breaks it down into the many and says, okay, let's break this down into sequences. Let's make it a step-by-step process so that it can be understood. And it takes this sequential process, it gives it back to the right brain, where the right brain now has a more expanded picture of what it didn't have before. And even though it's the same information, it's now been delineated. And then it can take that and have more holistic thinking. And then again, they'll pass it along to the left brain. And it's this beautiful dance of back and forth between the inspiration and then the unpacking, like strategy and then creativity, and strategy and creativity. And
So is
when
that
you're,
typically where we've seen it, the brain depicted of logic versus emotion? Like one hemisphere is to do with logic, the other is to do with emotion, that kind of thing.
yeah, that kind of a thing. I mean, and even the word logic, it's up for
Well, yeah,
interpretation.
yeah,
Really, but yeah,
yeah.
it's that concept. So you go back, you go forth, and being a conscious observer, we have the ability to do that as human beings. It's very unique because if we were, let's say, just a soul or a subtle body, we see things in the holistic form. We don't have the ability to delineate it. And if, quote unquote, you're just something that is, and I can't even say something that's just mechanical by itself, even that has some sort of consciousness. Like even I would say an inanimate object has life force. Not the same as, maybe it's different than a human. It's different than a plant or an animal. Everything is unique, but it also has the ability to do certain things. But as a human, what makes us very unique is that we have a strong grasp of free will. So not only are
Mm.
we sapient, we have the ability, we have an ego, and everyone says, oh, the ego is evil, I'm meant to absolve it. That's no, no, no. We're going to make mistakes with our ego, but those mistakes, that's what teaches us. We have to learn sometimes, we have to learn, what we're supposed to do from what we are not supposed to do. It's like, well, in order to figure out what's right, I have to first know what is not right. Then I can get myself, I see the contrast. Oh, I see that way didn't work. Okay, let's go with this. And that's how we learn. That's how we grow. It's like with jumping, you have to squat down before you can spring back up.
Brilliant.
So,
I mean, someone needs to clip that last minute and put that as a highlight somewhere. I mean, as you said yourself, right? I mean, you've got two spheres of your brain, in essence, working in co-harmony with each other. We also talk about the constant observation being at a almost species-like level, the group unity level. I read the oft-made point only a day ago of humans have an inherent need for connection. We're a tribal species, so we want that symbiosis with others. But we forget that first is only going to come along when we have an element of symbiosis with ourselves. And at the moment, we might have a conflict between our conscious and subconscious. You articulated it as the ego, and you're right that we typically see, if we've got an ego, that's not necessarily a good thing, and it refers to being egotistical or being pig-headed or arrogant. Where my perspective comes from the fact that our subconscious is there primarily for two reasons: to ensure we're not dead, so meet our survival, and to meet our core human needs. Now, in meeting those needs, you may have heard the fact that if we're not consciously meeting our needs, our subconscious will do it for us based on what it knows. Now, that itself might involve what we perceive as mistakes. So let's say we're on a diet and we're told not to eat a certain food or stick to a certain food nutrition plan or whatever, and we have some junk food at some point where we're not meant to. Now we term that as a mistake. That, I can't stick to my plan, I have no willpower. We begin that self-hate cycle from a mistake. But invariably we could look at it from a perspective of, well, is it a mistake, or is our subconscious actually going, well, actually, as a segue, or tangent, I mean, not segue, people call that self-sabotage. Now, here's the thing. People say it's self-sabotage because it's like, well, I was doing something good and then I purposely, as the phrase says, sabotage my efforts. But what if we looked at a perspective of your subconscious going, what are you actually trying to do here? Because it's not actually bought in to the general plan that your conscious said that you want. So in that clash where we've got, well, I'm saying I want to lose weight, etc., versus I had some junk food, I've got no willpower now, and we're self-sabotaging. What if it was self-protection? What if your subconscious is going, I don't know what you're doing, so I'm going to stop you making another mistake. Now, you might think that eating junk food was a mistake at this juncture, but what you'll come to realize is that I don't get what you're trying to do. And only when we talk to our subconscious do we get the idea of what we actually want. And that's where I for one, perceive the title of this episode, The Power of Mistakes, is that's an example where on the face of it, it's a mistake. People are like, oh, you shouldn't have eaten that, and that was against your plan or whatever. But the underlying message behind that is the power. It's like, well, okay, there may be a reason why I didn't do that. Similarly, in the same space, people, I've often made the example of at New Year's Eve, the most common resolution people make for the new year is to get fit. So go to the gym, wake up at 5 a.m., run around like Rocky, whatever it might be. Now that continues like midway through January. Then at the end of January, they begin to taper off, going, I'll go once every week instead of every 3 days or whatever. And beginning of February into middle February, you get a sleuth of gym membership cancellations. People are like, oh, same thing. I have no willpower. I can't do it. This is all that it is for me. So coming back to our first point, we collapse all the probabilities and possibilities to one point that we're like, right, that's all I'm ever going to have. So that for me is an example of the power of mistakes.
Yeah. So just to build off what you're saying, with those self-sabotage, those loops, what often happens is, I like to call this integrity mismatches. Yeah. You have your consciousness or your front end or your logic and your prefrontal cortex of reason saying, I want to lose weight. I know that's healthy. I know in my intellect that's healthy. And then you've got the subconscious mind, which is saying, wait a second, no. The emotion is saying, yeah, I want the result of weight loss, but usually it's looking for some sort of, it doesn't want it. It wants the result. But then the subconscious looks at all the work. Wait a second, you have to change your diet. You're going to have to exercise. And you have to start drinking water. You hate water. You're the first person who drank the glass and says, ew, water, ew. You're that person. And you don't want to do it. So what it does is it very subliminally sneaks under the radar and sends little signals. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. You don't want to wake up at 5 a.m. every single day. You don't want to have to, run your butt off and drag your butt out of bed and get into the gym and work out. You want to sit down and eat food that tastes good. You deserve it. Right. You deserve it. You work hard. And then it's like, you don't even know where these voices are coming from. But the integrity mismatches, you never had a discussion with your subconscious mind. And people go, well, I have to talk to my subconscious mind. I don't have time for that. Now, that's a problem. In our society, we don't make time to get quiet and to hear what our inner self is saying, because everything is external validation. Yep. And so, yeah, we're going to, when we run into those brick walls again and again, perpetuating those vicious cycles, we're taking a negative picture from the past, we're projecting it into our future, and it's like a projection screen. We keep seeing that picture ad infinitum over and over and over. And what that does to the probability wave is it skews it. So you always have infinite possibilities in that wave function. But because there's a bias now, you're only allowing yourself to see 3 or 4 of them, which are usually negative. So you keep collapsing them again and again and again and again until you sit there and say, wait, hold, stop. Subconscious mind, we got to talk. Let me actually hear what you have to say. Why don't you want me to lose weight? And then it'll say, yeah, I don't think we can handle the process. It's just too much. And then we sit there and say, okay, let's offer a reframe. Let's work together. I want to hear what you have to say because we know, me, myself, and I, the three of us, we know for our health, this has got to be.
Yep.
So let's find a way. Willpower will eventually tire. We don't want it to be willpower. The will center is not strong enough. But when it comes from that heart center, that conviction, that place of I am doing this, and I know I can do this, and I know it's possible, that feeling of no, 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 no. You you'll give yourself the permission to trial and error because everything is done from a place of love. It's like, hey, you know what? I screwed it up, but let's get back up and try again. Let's get back up and try again. I'm not a quitter. Let's do this. Let's do this for real.
Perfect. Again, someone needs to clip that last minute and put that in the highlights package because that's exactly it. Our subconscious is always communicating. And as you said, quite often we don't take the time to pause, so that conscious observation to go, right, what is actually going on here? As you said, there's a slew of external validation we have going on. So often we'll see things like peer pressure come into play or the fear of missing out, you know, FOMO or whatever bloody acronym you got going on nowadays. But we rarely go, right, what's my subconscious saying? Now, as you said, it might go, well, that work's too hard. Let's just sit on the sofa. Let's just watch TV. Let's eat junk. You like doing that, isn't it? And we're like, right, but I want to lose weight. You consciously say it. So that to me is a place where we can go, right, we'll dig further. What does that mean? Well, like, okay, the work's hard. Yeah, it is. Any change we want to perpetuate in ourselves is not an instant overnight thing. Contrary to popular belief and what's seen out there, that you can get results instantly. What's under that? Okay, you have the fear of work. What's under that? What you might find when you dig even further is, well, I don't actually want to lose the weight in the first place, which seems counterintuitive because you're actually saying it. But we often forget that, you know, you referenced the two hemispheres of the mind in sync with each other. Well, sometimes we might be out of balance. Now, you termed it as two halves of the brain. I term it between our heart and head voice. You know, your heart voice is your subconscious, that emotion, that instant gut feeling and answer, which go, yeah, I want to lose weight. And your head goes, right, wait, before I actually articulate that out loud to everybody, and I might look stupid or gullible or naive, wait, just think, is that the right thing to say? So it runs a PR machine. And it's like, right, if it's not, then I'm going to put a holding phrase out like, oh, it's not that I don't want to lose weight while I think of something else. But when you dig into it, you're like, right, the reason I actually don't want to make the effort into putting into the work to lose weight is I don't want to lose weight because I'm not driving it. I think I want to lose weight because my partner told me, or my family told me, going, you're looking a bit podgy there. You need to lose some weight, or you need to lose weight to find a partner. You know, no one's going to like you in this shape, or whatever external validation, as we were saying before, that triggers something in your shadow. The subconscious goes, hang on, that's bloody hard. Now I'm here to protect you and keep you alive. So this new thing you're trying to do, I'm not going to go anywhere near that. So what we're going to do is carry on these behaviors that we might not like or think are not special, but it's what we naturally feel like. We do want to just loaf around. When we actually ask ourselves, like, what do I want? And I say, bring out proper reasons, actually, where we go, actually, it would be beneficial for my health, physically, my emotional health, mental health, all the attributes that we've heard. And as you said, then it's like, right, you're now getting your subconscious to buy into it more. So it's like, okay, I see what you're trying to do. And then, as you say, you start on the journey of like, okay, start a nutrition plan, start an exercise plan, whatever. Along the way, there'll be mistakes and obstacles. Power of mistakes again. You learn from them. You be kind to yourself. You're compassionate. You understand change takes time for all your systems. And then before you know it, you might have actually achieved the goals you might have in weight loss or fitness or whatever as a byproduct. But it all starts with that conversation, with that subconscious, and getting into that conscious observation. What is actually going on?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that's the thing. We it's a term by Dr. David Hawkins. He has the model of consciousness. We glamorify the result. Because really we feel like I'm going to attach my self-worth to a result, weight loss.
That's
and
it.
if I just glamorize that, oh, weight loss is the thing. Once I lose the weight and I look good, then I'll be lovable, then I'll be worthy of this, I'll be worthy of being a millionaire, of getting the partner, whatever it is that you're wanting, because you've attached
Yep.
that to the weight loss. And I say, no, guys, you'll have the same itty bitty pity committee, you'll just be skinny. So you have to actually get to the subconscious, the belief beneath the belief of, what is it that you're actually holding on to that needs to let go. And when you get that from a place of true integrity, then you don't have to will it. The weight just, or whatever it is that you want will naturally be released, because you no longer need to hold on to that to protect yourself. You can let it go. You don't need it as a defense mechanism anymore.
Exactly. Again, I couldn't have put it better myself, with especially with the David Hawkins example, where he talks about, as I said, if you hang your self-worth on that external thing. So this is where goal chasing comes into it. The idea that whatever is put out there as a goal, that's the only thing you go after. You go on that, and if you don't get it, oh, you failed, or you're not good enough. When actually introducing yourself to this kind of work with things like conscious observation, have the conversation with your subconscious, makes you go, okay, at the moment, I still feel I want that thing. But if I don't get it, or I change my mind about it, that's okay. I no longer have to put everything into a frame of that was a mistake. Because in honesty, we make mistakes all the time. Everybody. It's only a few at the moment, and that number's building, where we can actually go, okay, what can I learn from that mistake? That's being said more often nowadays, of okay, what can I learn from mistakes? How can I move on rather than dwell on them? Easier said than done, for sure. It's not a case of, right, every time that's going to naturally happen, you're going to get feelings where, like, okay, I actually did make a mistake, and I dwell on it, particularly from those that are coming from a perfectionist background or people pleasing, attributes that you think that are quite virtuous, because people say, oh, it's good to people please, isn't it? You think of other people before yourself. We can talk about that maybe on another session. But yeah, ultimately, look, hanging your self-worth on a goal is often defeating the point. You can have the idea of flexible thinking. So again, you stem away from binary thinking to scaled thinking, taking that responsibility for yourself, being kind to yourself, and going, do you know what? I can go after what I want. And if I change my mind, that's okay. Because all the time you're now using the idea of conscious observation. You can see, okay, what is going on? Because sometimes people go, well, if you're just being lackadaisical or carefree about anything, aren't you being like a unrealistic hippie or something? It's like, I'm not here to forcibly change anyone's mind by ramming it down their throat, saying everybody has to follow what we say. It's like, just introduce yourself to possibilities, always expanding that distribution as much as we can.
Yeah, and the cool thing is, with mistakes, once we get over the ego feeling of, oh, I just stuffed that up. Like, once we get past that, it's like, hey, if you've learned something, it was worth it. Like, it's like in the TV show Wheel of Fortune, when you spin the wheel, you can you get to let's say you land on the $1,000 and you say, okay, I'm gonna pick S, and there are 3 S's, and they light up, you get $3,000. They say, okay, I'd like to buy a vowel. So that temporary liability, we think it's a liability because now you're buying the vowel, because you lose a little money, actually it generates an even greater asset to yourself when you learn something from it. So you buy a vowel, you buy an A, you buy an E, and like, oh, it's great. I can solve the puzzle now. So, okay, you spent a little bit of money, but overall it was an asset to you. So mistakes can be the same thing. It's okay, you have to make a little investment, but the return on investment is so powerful. And again, when we're doing things, we're not trying to generate just an income, because that's taxable. You want to generate assets. That's for life. So mistakes are those assets that just keep us going. And by the way, disclaimer, that doesn't mean go mess something up on purpose just so you can, no, that's not a mistake. That's not a mistake anymore. That's just being stupid. But like, if in life, we're going to trial and error. That's just part of life. And when you use that to grow and to learn and expand, that's just part of learning. And if someone else is going to shame you, one word of disclaimer, that's their stuff, not yours.
Right. And, another interesting point we can bring into the mix here is often I say when you introduce alternatives to what you're thinking, people feel like we're going from one extreme to another. So, you know, one that sprang to mind for me was there's a temptation on the kind of work you do to be then a know-it-all to everybody, to try and change everybody's life and kind of be like a white knight, trying to fix everybody's problems without them asking you to do so, or appear that you've got life down to a T, you know everything now, and that you're above certain people. That's what I see, actually, controversial point coming up. A lot of coaches in our space seem to be doing. You know, I referenced it earlier that they feel that their thing that they offer is that singular point of I'm correct, that's it. And anybody else offering some different alternative is wrong.
Yeah,
I always
and
see it as like, well, look, we're all trying to figure out what works for us. We're trying to find our ways. But if everyone's just telling us that they've got the answer, you're all wrong. It's like, well, there's room for everybody.
yeah, and sorry about before. I didn't realize you were still. Anyway, so I made a mistake on camera live. Oops, it's part of life, right? Um, yeah. So, and then that's the thing. There is no. It's like I said with the theory of relativity. Now, for those of you who are very hardcore physicists, will sit there and say it's the curvature of space time. You're getting way too esoteric, and it's like, okay, fine, just use it as a metaphor, use it as an example. But there's no one single reference point that is at rest relative to everything else. When you're in
Yeah.
the universe in horizontal causality, everything is moving relative to everything else. If I were to say if the superposition is multiple possibilities that exist outside of space-time, if you were to bring superposition into space-time, it's everything that's in constant motion because we can't have two things at once happening. You just can go from one to the other to the other. It's that constant motion. It's those those everything is turning and moving. So that's what superposition looks like, in motion in space time. Kind of my own thoughts there, but
Brilliant.
yeah,
Brilliant. To be honest, this is what the title of the whole series is about. You're bringing in the idea of emotional intelligence, bringing in quantum physics, as you said. I even forget the term now. Horizontal. What was it again?
causality.
Causality, right? I mean, it just makes you definitely consider that these things that we view can be looked at so many different ways, and that's the cool thing about it. And to be honest, I've just got the Wheel of Fortune wheel going around in my head now because that's that analogy is really good about as you said that relative mistake of spending a bit to gain a lot. It's probably pertinent to a lot of our examples. Even thinking about investing in yourself. People may balk at like, right, if I want to improve whatever skill or whatever, there might be some monetary output involved, and a lot of people have limiting beliefs or ideas or singularity points about money, or like, no, because from a previous experience, they're quite cautious or risk averse or whatever it might be with money. And when it comes to investing in yourself, even though they're hearing that like, oh, it'll be good for you and and reasons to invest in it, they're like, yeah, but I still balk at handing over or paying or whatever amount into yourself, especially if it's something not tangible. If it's not like a car or what do people buy nowadays? I don't know, expensive tech or a house. Well, I say house, but you can't really buy that in England anymore. But they naturally bulk at what they're having to give out. But again, if we slow down and go, okay, what's actually going on here? Even that own belief, we can dig around about how we spend money and our attitudes to money versus the choice that we're actually making. Why do I want that car or whatever in the first place? Every decision we can ask in that same manner. And then, to be honest, a lot of the time we might find that like we go, actually, I don't really want the thing that I said I would. But at the moment, we perceive that as like, oh, that's a mistake. I can't really say that because what are we like deluding ourselves? Are we kidding ourselves? Where am I going? Am I indecisive? In truth, we're all just winging it. We're all just trying to find maybe we're looking for a place of singular rest when actually that doesn't exist. We can, as you said, there are infinite possibilities, and things are moving in conjunction with each other. That if we can just go, okay, I can open myself up to possibilities with enough practice and compassion, it starts to unfold in a lot of manners in life. Because maybe at the moment, a lot of people are stuck with, no, I need to see it clear. What's my route to X? Whether that's X being a career change, a new car, partner, wealth, less stress, anger management, weight loss, relationship with money. What's the way? And it's like, yeah, as you said, you could make that little committee of people, get that thing, and you're like, well, that didn't do it. What's the next thing? But when you go open up your distribution, consider everything's not a singular point, interactive with each other. The mistakes that you make along the way actually get you to where you are. That's when you'll see things. Yeah, actually, then we talked earlier about the subconscious. You actually listen to it. Then even that very act of going, right, I need to check in my subconscious here, that just happens automatically. So whereas before it was like an annoying ego-driven voice, or you called it the ego. Yeah, no, put that away. It actually becomes a little bit more prominent because you're naturally just in communication with it.
Well, actually, the subconscious isn't it isn't the ego. The ego is, our own superimposed what we think should be. It's the should voice. I should, I
Uh-huh.
should, I should. That self-righteous pride. But one way that I found for myself, I've always been naturally in tuned with it, but what I've found is, when we get quiet and we, meditation, and for everyone, like, again, this is another thing,
Yes.
there's no wrong way to meditate. People are like, well, am I meditating wrong because I'm like scratching my nose or shuckling? It's in the beginning. When you're learning a new skill, it's going to be, you're going to move. So it's just, sit as long as you can, try to get quiet. And here's the thing, I had two, I spoke to two people this week who basically said, yeah, I'm in between either jobs or in between semesters at school, and I have nothing going on. I'm so bored. I don't know what to do with myself. I'm going to go crazy. And I think people can kind of, resonate with that, because it's this feeling of, I have to be busy 24/7, 365 in a quarter. I have to always be busy. And if I'm not, something is wrong. But I say, hey, here's the perfect opportunity. You don't have to be doing external things to fulfill somebody else's dream. Take the
Yep.
time right now, go into quiet, talk to your subconscious mind, go into meditation. And if you can't sit still for any longer than 5 minutes, don't worry about it. It's like the first time you go on the elliptical. It takes, you can do is 5 minutes, and soon you can build up and you can do it for hours, So start slow and get to know your subconscious mind, because you will definitely feel much more resonant, much more conscious, much more aware, much more perceptive. And the body wisdom, the higher knowing, the inner knowing, is a lot more profound and fulfilling than any external validation you're ever going to get. Because anything in horizontal causality, from external validation, it comes and it goes. But the internal, the vertical causality, the holistic inner knowing, that is connection to that fundamental oneness, which is the whole greater than the sum of its parts.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing that immediately came to mind when you're talking is that you talked about, people not being able to physically sit still, and during the idea of meditating. And I also think that, well, do you know what, your own subconscious might be thinking, this is bollocks. What are you doing? Like, this, really? What are we doing here? Like, okay, what am I meant to think? You know what I mean? You get that kind of inner skeptical dialogue. When, if that happens, that's okay. You will take whatever you will from any source, what you perceive. Like, I often make the point that, like, whether you read a self-development book or go through a course or have any intrigue about this kind of thing whatsoever, you don't have to believe or buy into every single facet that you read or hear about. So there might be things that on the surface of it might sound a bit kind of, out there from your own, experiences, or the idea that, like, I haven't explored that. So things like, psychic readings or oracle readings, or people that use cards, energy, all that kind of thing, and you're like, well, not so sure. That's okay. You can take from whatever source what you will. There's no, when you, again, it comes back to the thing we were saying about the core thing is sometimes there's no, actually not even sometimes, there is no right or wrong answer in a lot of what we do. We just think there is. A lot of the time we're making stories about what's going on in our life. That it equates down to our beliefs and opinions and stories about our own lives. So whether if we have a skepticism about meditation, whatever, for example, people might think, oh, is meditating just sitting there in the yoga pose with these hands cross-legged, saying om for like for ages. Like, it can be, that's one version if that works for you, but it could be, as you said, taking a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, just sitting down there and right, what is going on? And then people go, yeah, but I don't have time for that. And okay, I'm not saying you must carve out time. You're not okay, but the idea, you've introduced yourself to the belief that it can be like that. Well, okay, I could craft a minute or two if I really wanted to. You can find that you'll do that, but if you're finding that skepticism or slow go, that is okay. And that also enfolds in mistakes. So if you didn't do something perfectly, which to be honest is probably everything we do, there is very little that we get exactly right. And again, where do we get the idea that we've done something perfectly? Our own expectations. Whether that's, I don't know, going out on a date, hosting a party, an exam, a presentation, an interview. We want it to be this image of like, right, I want everything to go in my control, how I'm visualizing it. And if it doesn't, it's rubbish. But in honesty, we'll probably make a mistake. Now, the power of that mistake lies in, well, does it let you affect your own, impinge on your own self-worth? Are we going, oh, fuck, I'll never get a job because I've, didn't pass an interview, or, I'm so rubbish at this subject because I didn't pass an exam. It's like, okay, well, what about the next exam? What can I learn from it? Who else can I even ask? There's possibilities, there's answers within. You don't have to go, right, someone fix it for me. It's like, well, ask yourself. A lot of people think that, like, okay, is what we do so complex and intricate and all folded together? It can be. It's as complex as you make it, but it comes back to the very idea of very simple terms. Take responsibility. Be kind to yourself. Stay compassionate. Ask yourself questions. You have the answers. Just at the moment, we're going, I don't want to look at them. Okay. But they are there. It's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Our higher selves, we have all the answers when we tune into that. That's the power of that fundamental oneness. We tune into that. Everything is there. Everything is available. Also, that wave function. We just have to be willing to do the work and to sometimes be wrong, because I kind of see a mistake this way. It's like we wouldn't have even known we were doing something incorrectly if there was no feedback. It's like we can, like, if we didn't have pain receptors, in our hands, if we put our hands in the fire, how would we know it was bad for us? We wouldn't. It's feedback from the universe telling us, hey, whoa, you're off track. Just, get back on track and you're good. Lots of self-love. It's okay. It's fine. We're here to support you and show you the way, and let's keep you back on track.
And as one last point I was going to make was, even beyond like the actions and thoughts we have that we perceive as mistakes, we also sometimes apply that to our emotions, that what we feel is unacceptable and is therefore a mistake. So these are typically emotions that we've encountered or have the understanding of, that they're unacceptable, yet they're perfectly natural. So it might be feelings of frustration, annoyance, jealousy, sadness, grief, embarrassment, shame, vengeance. We're all like, no, can't feel them, got to put them away. And even when we feel them naturally arising in any situation, we go, right, I can't display that out loud because that's not good enough because of what you prior believe. So if I do burst out loud, oh, that's a mistake. Now, again, not advocating that we go from suppressing all your emotions, biting your lip, holding your tongue, to suddenly being like the Incredible Hulk, smashing things up everywhere. As tempting as it might be. And even if that did happen, it's not like, okay, you know, I'm not good enough, or that was unacceptable, etc. Yeah, you can take responsibility for it, absolutely. There's a message in there. There's always something, there's a root cause behind a symptom. So it wasn't, you know, people have often heard phrases like the straw that broke the camel's back, or, you know, that was the last straw, or something along those lines, where it wasn't that innocuous act that really burst out your emotion. It was the build up that you're having to keep suppressing and suppressing and suppressing until you can't suppress it anymore and it bursts out. Well, the lesson we have there is, instead of perceiving our emotions as unacceptable and mistakes, when we can naturally feel them and process them, gives you so much more possibilities and ideas, because now you're giving yourself the message that, like, okay, what I feel is acceptable. So it's not the emotion, it's what you think about the emotion. So that applies to things like anxiety, depression, anger, sadness. People that on the Facebook go, I just want to be less anxious. Well, in all honesty, no one is never not anxious, if that makes sense. We all feel anxiety. There's not one person you know that's like, I never get anxious. If they are, they're telling shit. We all get anxious. At the moment, we're like, oh, I'm feeling anxious. That's no good. And what do we get? We get toxic positivity going, oh, it's not nerves. It's excitement. It's not anxious. You know, pump yourself up. Again, we're just getting the message that what you naturally feel is unacceptable. Change it quickly. Change it into something more acceptable. When we can go, do you know what? I'm feeling anxious or nervous. That's okay. I don't need to spin it round. I don't need to, you know, fight myself and say I'm a warrior, a goddess, a lioness, whatever animal you want to stick in there. We feel what we naturally feel. When we give ourselves that message, that is the power of mistakes. Again, you don't put it in the frame of a mistake. It's natural, it's human, it's acceptable, and that's one of the first, I call them one of your first steps on your path to your inner peace. You can go, okay, I can naturally feel what I want. That's okay. Takes practice, takes some passion. Like we said before, it's not an overnight fix, but when we get out of that horizontal causality space and into the vertical, your possibilities open up.
Yeah, that was very well said. Yeah, that last line there. Yeah, and that's the thing, you know. I always say, whatever you do, there's a core value of mine with integrity. No matter what you do,
Yeah,
have integrity. If you don't have integrity, even though your goal might be amazing, it's going to be much harder to use willpower to get it. When you have that integrity, and you can work as slow as you need to work, just sitting there and say, yeah, I'm feeling some anxiety, some depression, some frustration. Okay, I feel it. It's coming up, and oh, it's really making me mad, and I feel that. I just want to scream. But then you remind yourself, okay, it's human. And let me just take a deep breath. Let's try to, manage our energy, manage my sense of self, and get myself back on track. We're not going to pretend it's not there. It's here. I feel it. I want to slug somebody. And just say, but you know what? I know everything is working out. But when I tell myself everything is working out for me, it doesn't mean that life is unicorn farts and rainbow hearts. It just means everything is working out, and it might be this crazy ride, but it will fall into place if I just trust the process. And that has never steered me wrong. That has always been correct for me.
absolutely. Wise words again. The possibilities are there. In the heat of the moment, we don't consider that, and I'm as guilty as the next person of that. Just maybe in these last couple of days, I've felt that put to the test, to be honest, from a few angles. And as tempting as it is to just go, slip back into old behaviors or habits, you're like, okay, you see, again, conscious observation, what's going on? Okay, it's these emotions, it's these situations, it might be repeated situations. I don't have to dwell on them, but sometimes I will dwell on them, and I give it the space to process out in full. That doesn't mean to say it will never come back again. That just gives me more clues. So, like, okay, you can keep working at it so that it might not come as so strong on next time. You give yourself the opportunity to learn from the mistakes that you'll keep making. Because again, you know, the central message here is that if you think you're going to do the work on yourself, etc., without any mistakes, that's the fallacy in itself. You will make mistakes. Everybody does. There's not the last page of a book, not the last track of an album, not the last level of video game. It doesn't exist. We will always keep learning. And when we introduce ourselves to that, we're like, okay, even the most successful inspirations that we see around us, whether they're celebrities or people in our lives or figures or inspirations, whoever they may be, we all make mistakes. But the power lies in what we can understand about them without impinging or hanging our self-worth on them.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, I felt this was a nice way to kind of wrap up the hour and just
Indeed,
guys.
an hour. Bloody hell, we've been on an hour.
Yeah, it's like we're at 5. Look at those number synchronicities.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as I said, like we could probably go on for a long while with that. But yeah, look, again, is such another great enlightening session, and look, we're keen, as you know, two collaborators on this, to have people's input on this. So whenever you're watching this on the replay or whatever, do put your thoughts down, etc. We'll definitely have a read of those. And if you've got any ideas for further topics for future sessions, again, please feel free to put them down and share, because we want this to be, you know, interactive. What do people want to hear? What do people get, not get, find relevant, not relevant? Because, you know, this series itself has infinite possibilities. You know, we're melding together two spaces that on their own have infinite possibilities, but bringing them together is a unique space that, you know, we're keen to keep going for as long as we can. And you know, thank you again to Nini for such a great enlightening session. As I said, like, you know, honestly, check her stuff out on social media. There's plenty more where that came from in terms of like examples, analogies, you know, the way she applies concepts to ordinary examples. You know, to be honest, that was the big thing that caught my eye. It's like, okay, it's someone that can phrase it in a very encouraging and enlightening way. So yeah, definitely check her out. And yeah, look, we'll look to do this again definitely very soon. Now that we've got a nice stable platform to do it on. But yeah, Nina, if you want to introduce some final words as well.
Yeah, just, you know, thank you for putting this together. It's been very nice to also have gotten to know you over the last year and a half. And that first, also, you commented on one of my posts and you were a little bit like, I'm not sure if I should say this, but you kind of called BS the positive toxicity. And I sent you a direct message. I'm like, oh, thank you. And you're like, but you're not offended. I'm like, no, you said the truth. And that was like, that's what I really enjoyed. So, hey, if you're a truth seeker, if you're kind of like one of those very bad boss types of people, then yeah, definitely it's like that. That's what we're looking to deliver and to enlighten, and would love to hear any feedback and questions so that we can deliver more value to you. Thank you.
Absolutely. And again, just to repeat what we just said, any thoughts, questions, follow our channels. I'm in a Peace Walker. You'll find Nini on all the social media platforms. Check her out, check me out. And any suggestions for sessions, do let us know. So until next time, we'll catch you later and feel supersonic.